Go. Go. Hey, welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Greinberg and Biggs. He is Greinberg. I am Biggs. Today we are talking about our top 3 running back fades in redraft fantasy football. Those would be your leagues on ESPN.com, Yahoo.com, NFL.com, CBSSports.com. You playing against your family? You playing at your work? Yeah, let's get it. Producer! Forecast Fantasy to the welcome. I am Biggs. He is Greinberg. And we're so happy that you tuned in. We went over in our last episode our top 3 wide receiver fades. And the episode previous to that, we did our top 3 quarterback fades. Now, I do want to reiterate something here. And that is, we are not saying that these players are not draftable, not rosterable, that you don't want them. What we're saying is, for example, Puka Nacua, somebody that I talked about in the last episode. He was wide receiver 4 last year. Looking at the breakdown of what is likely to happen in 2024, he's not likely to finish that high again. So he is sliding, he's fading, he's sliding down my rankings. Same with these guys at the running back position. Saquon Barkley, for instance. Now, Saquon Barkley has been a transcendental, generational talent at running back. He's switching teams. He's going to a team that utilizes RPO a lot. Jalen Hurts runs the ball a lot. They have legit targets out in the field. He's not going to be asked to carry the team on his back anymore. There were times where Saquon Barkley was the first running back drafted off the board. He's no longer in that position, so he's a fade. Derrick Henry, similar story, changing teams on the backside of his career. Derrick Henry is likely to have a really good season. He also is paired with an extreme running quarterback where he wasn't before, which means he's likely to get fewer touches and not quite be the Derrick Henry that we've come to know and love over the last couple of years. My number 1 spotlight I will share with you after Mike gives us a couple.
Such a tease, Biggs. Stop teasing me, man. I wanted to know. The inquiry minds wanted to know, but they actually want to know about who my fades are as well. And my first fade here is a guy that finished as the RB7, the RB9, and the RB13 respectively in fantasy points per game since joining his new team in Arizona 3 years ago. And I'm talking about James Conner. Last season might have been his best season to date, despite ranking 21st in rushing attempts, 6th in rushing yards in the NFL. He showed no signs that, he was on the digress, but he is now in a situation where I think, with the new weapons around Kyler Murray and with the draft capital they spent on Trey Benson, I just think that James Conner is going to see a decrease in rushing attempts, and he's going to be off the field a little bit more in 2024, which is going to make him a fade for me going forward. So James Conner, I think time is going to catch up with him a little bit in 2024, especially with the draft capital they spent on Trey Benson. So he is my first fade. He is old. And my second fade is a guy that probably is going to raise some eyebrows here, and that's Devon Achane. And with the new wave of explosive rushers that just hit the scene, he finished as the RB5 in fantasy points per game. He only played 8 games last year, but with those 41% snap share, he averaged 14 touches, which meaning that when he was on the field, he was a guy that just garnered a lot of targets off of him. Well, he's only 5'9", 188 pounds, and he's definitely undersized in my opinion for a running back. And they brought in a guy that I think is going to be a guy that is going to garner some attention as well, and that's Jalen Wright. And he could be a guy that also is going to take some targets away from Devon Chan, and I think with the small size, I could see him missing some time. So I'm fading Devon Chan in 2024 as a guy that I'm going to use as a running back one. Great complimentary guy, but I just don't think he's going to have the upside as a long-term longevity there in that position. What about you, Biggs?
Yeah, it's a big fast three-headed monster in Miami.
Yeah,
and
yeah, and we can't discount Raheem Mostert either, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about three heads, a lot of mouths to feed there, and they're going to use ways to get him the ball. But they also added, both Washingtons in the draft. Jalen Waddle is coming off of, an injury-plagued season, so he's going to be healthy. I just think there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed there, and Tua Tagovailoa was a fade for me. So all of these things coming into play. I just don't think Miami's going to come out and be as prolific of an offense as they have been in the past.
They all conspire. All of those things conspire. Now, if the Miami Dolphins are able to score 70 points a game like they did against the Denver Donkeys last year, then there might be a possibility that all of those mouths will be fed.
Yeah.
All right, my number one fade, and this is like low hanging fruit. This is this is a free throw. It's a gimme. Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard. Now, one of the things that surprised me in my research, because I do my research, Chuba Hubbard is not an old guy. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't. I thought he was old. But he's only been around for a few years, which means that he was very young when he was drafted. He's only 24. I thought he was around for longer than that. Anyway, he was the starter last year in Carolina after he usurped that job from Devin Singletary. And when the season came to an end, it was like, ooh, Chuba Hubbard, running back one in Carolina, might be a good value next year. But then you start to look a little bit deeper. You start to dig a little bit, do your research, like I said. And he's just not very efficient. He's the starter to begin 2024 when they started team activities, but he will be nothing more than a handcuff by week 4. You'll hear me talk all summer long about depth chart number ones at the different positions. He's the wide receiver 1 on the depth chart, but he's being drafted as, like behind some wide receiver 2s or etc. Zamir White, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, all guys that are being slept on. And I meant Miles Sanders, not Devin Singletary, when Chuba Hubbard took his job. But those are all guys that they're the number one kind of bell cowish running back on their teams, but they're not being drafted that way. Chuba Hubbard isn't really being drafted that way either. He is well outside of like the top 30 running backs, but he is the opposite of that. He is the depth chart number 1, and he needs to be put to bed. You will not hear me talking about Chuba Hubbard's value because Jonathan Brooks is going to take that job, and he's going to take it as soon as he's ready to do it because he is uberly more talented than, see, I can make up words too, more talented than Chuba. So yeah, it's Jonathan Brooks's world, and Chuba's just living in it. And I mean, Chuba is like, he's on the verge of undraftable to me.
Yeah,
that's a fade. That's a fade.
That's a huge fade. And yeah, I mean, Jonathan Brooks is everything that everybody has been talking about. He's rushing up draft boards right now. So if you're in a draft right now and you see him steaming up, get him now while the price is still good, because he's just going to steam up as this offseason continues and people start seeing him on the field as that knee injury gets healed up. So Jonathan Brooks, folks, one guy to really look out for. Now, another guy that you should look out for as a part of a mine, if essentially, is that's Kyren Williams, and he went pretty much undrafted in many fantasy leagues last year, and rightfully so. He was a former 5th-round pick, and he surprised a lot of fantasy managers after week 1 last year when he pretty much took over the starting job from Cam Akers. He led all running backs with an 84% snap share, on his way to an RB2 finish, only behind Christian McCaffrey. He averaged 22 touches per game and 117 yards on the ground. He only played 11 games, and despite missing 5 games due to injury, he still managed to finish 4th in red zone touches with 60. It wasn't just the volume for him. He was efficient with all his opportunities. Incredible stuff. So why am I fading a guy that performed so well in 2024? Well, to me, everything fell perfectly into place for Kyren Williams in 2023, and he'll need to be that bell cow role in 2024 in order to repeat his performance, and that's a hefty investment. If you look at his ADP right now, you will see I still like Kyren Williams, but just not at the price considering what the Rams have done in the draft and in the past. McVay is just not loyal to his running backs, in my opinion. He has the Rams not just only used a day 2 pick on a running back in the 2024 draft. Most consider him to be, a guy that is more talented than Kyren Williams, and that's Blake Corum, who was picked with the 83rd overall pick, and he could, bearing an injury, come in there to Kyren Williams and take his workload right away headed into the 2024 season. Williams is already nursing an ankle injury from what I'm hearing, and Corum comes in with the talent and draft capital, and I think he will be involved right away out of the gate. That will cut into Williams' role as a bell cow usage. Heaven forbid that injury, and then Corum could just take over that backfield. So with all that said, and the volatility at the RB position, I'm fading Kyren Williams and taking a safer bet at that spot. I'd rather have a guy like Rachaad White, even a guy like Saquon Barkley, who Biggs is fading in that spot. I much prefer Isaiah Pacheco in that spot as well. So Kyren Williams is one of my biggest fades at the running back position in 2024.
Today is May 23rd. NFL teams have just started their OTAs, and I'm already tired of talking about Kyren Williams as a fade because we do it so damn much. I've said this, it's a tale as old as time. The higher draft capital comes in, it's a higher investment, they're going to get a bigger contract, they're going to get more touches. Kyren Williams' job is in jeopardy, and Blake Corum is the guy who's going to take it. And what the last thing Kyren Williams needed was to get hurt in OTAs. I know that some of you who are regular viewers may have noticed in our last episode my hat, the Fantasy Forecast, Grindberg and Biggs hat. And you're looking at this and you're seeing, oh, it's a Fantasy Football Advice Network hat. Where can I get that? Go to Fantasy Football Advice Network on the interwebs and go to our Streamlabs store and order one for yourself. There's a lot of cool merch, and you can have it too.
Man, that hat looks really good. I love the trucker hat, and it looks sharp with the red, my friend. Yeah, buddy. I can't wait to see you in person wearing that at the Fantasy Football Expo coming up in Canton, Ohio on August 8th to 11th. We are going to be rocking the Fantasy Football Advice Network gear. Come see us at the booth. Potentially, you might even see us on the main stage. You never know, Biggs.
Drunk just thinking about it.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Well, that's it for this week, folks. We got into some big-time fades at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and next week we've got another big slate for you guys and girls. It's going to be good.
Fade all tight ends.
All of them. Every single one. Let's go. Okay, everybody. Everybody, Thank you for watching the Fantasy Forecast on the Fantasy Football Advice Network. From
like,
Brian
subscribe, share, hit the bell.
Yeah.
Follow
From
us on
everybody
Twitter.
here at us. Yeah.
At Big Bone and FFB.
At FF99.
That's FF Canuck 99.
Let's go.
I hope you win. We hope
I hope you win.
He hopes you win.
Peace out.